Well, hello again, everybody. Back with another Amtrak story. It's funny how these things occur to me, but tonight I thought of something that happened many years ago when I was about 14 or 15 years old. This would have been about, I don't know, 91, 92, something like that, because I'm old. Anyway, I remember my grandmother had passed away, and my Aunt Caren had received just a little bit of money from, whatever they call it, the settlement when a person passes, or an inheritance. And she wanted to take myself and then my two cousins, her nieces, on some kind of special adventure. She was childless. She is still childless. And just wanted to kind of reconnect, if you will, with the family. And so she asked each of us, where would you all like to go? Let's do a trip together, she said. And my two cousins, younger than I at the time, said, well, we want to go to Disney. So she took them to Disney. And then she said to me, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to take a train trip to New York. And, the rail bug has been in me for a long time. The moment I saw the C&O chassis system locomotives and caboose pass by my house when I was old enough to be conscious, I wanted to know more about these giant machines. Well, by the time I was 14 or so, I was fully entrenched. I loved them. I had Trains magazine, all of it. And so that was my wish. And she said, let's go. So we ended up aboard the Lake Cities from Detroit to Toledo, which operated at that time. It no longer does. And then we ended up going to New York on the Lakeshore Limited. And at that time, by the way, it was all heritage equipment, and it was great. It was great. We had a Pullman roomette. It was perfectly functional and clean and tidy, and oh my God, breakfast in the dining car the next morning was just incredible, and there were fresh flowers. It was a real nice experience. And so we went to New York, and in my Aunt Karen's eyes, the pinnacle of New York is to go see a Broadway show. And that's what we did. And, we hung out. I have absolutely zero recollection of New York as an experience, other than one thing. We ate, we waited, we went to a Broadway show. That's how New York was. Then we came home. That's New York. But the Broadway show was called Angels in America. I haven't the first thought in my mind anymore about that show than I do about the city of New York. But I remember one scene wherein it was expressed that two males were engaging in coitus on stage. And as a 14-year-old boy in 1992 or 3 or whatever it was, that was just shocking, frankly. And I tell you what, at age 49 in 2026, I don't want to see even a male and female represented. That's just not something I'm interested in. But apparently this Broadway show, Angels in America, was groundbreaking in that it portrayed a certain segment of the population in a way that they haven't been portrayed before, you can look it up. Regardless, when the show ended, my aunt and I walked along, I guess it was Broadway, and chatted about what we had just seen. And I said, I thought it was kind of weird and gross. And she says, why? Because they were two men? I said, no, because I just don't want to see that. It's like going to a porn theater or something. Like, you might as well have taken me to the Pussycat Theater in, Midtown Detroit. And, she's like, oh, no, that's not what the point was. I'm like, well, you explain it to me. Well, she couldn't explain it to me. I still don't have the answer. And regardless of that, Caren, that's her name, was a bit of a drinker, probably still is. And she proceeded to just get hammered back at the hotel bar. Meanwhile, I went upstairs into the hotel and watched TV, right? As a teenage boy in 1992 would be prone to do. Fell asleep. The next morning, the train was scheduled to leave. And we were supposed to depart from Penn Station. I think it was 11 a.m. 11:26, I think. Well, I woke up early. And when I woke up, Caren wasn't there. Well, I knew what to do, and I had tickets, and frankly, Caren was so kind of bitter the night before, I didn't quite care. I knew how to get home. So I got a shower, and I got dressed, and I got my bag packed and had my tickets, and I just headed straight to Penn Station. And at the time, even to a bit now, the new Moynihan Train Hall has opened, I hear, and it looks beautiful. But at the time, Penn Station was a pit underground. It was a terrazzo tiled floor, low ceilings. It was a basement. It was gross. But I ended up getting my way over there. I rented a locker. I shoved my little travel bag, which I still own, right up into the locker space and just started to strut around. I had a few hours before the train left, whether Caren came with me or not. And I remember walking across the street to the post office outside. Above Penn Station, if you don't know, is Madison Square Garden, the arena. And across from that was the old post office, big, beautiful building with columns in front. And I went in, and I literally just walked into a post office. I was curious about what it was. So funny that today that is the Moynihan Train Hall, how it's changed. And I thought at the time, I said, this would be a better train station than a basement under Madison Square Garden. In any case, I walked back to Penn and I went downstairs to the train level. At that time, there were no real security concerns. And man, I watched trains come in and out for an hour. I just stood and watched them. And there were trains from Albany and what have you, which used the third rail, so I got to see FL9s. For you train nerds out there, they were our last operating car body F units, if you will, really streamlined, nice things. Had a great time. Well, now it's train time. Now it's, I think, 11:05 in the morning, and I went upstairs, and I went to the line for the sleepers, and here comes Caren. Here comes Caren. And she's just hammered, absolutely hammered. And she nodded at me as if I were another passenger. And we went in, and obviously we were in the same roomette going back. And she's like, I just need to sit down for a while. I'm like, you go ahead. And I went straight directly back to the lounge. I was 14 years old, could not drink, could not do anything. I took out my sketchbook and I just started drawing pictures of what I saw around me. And by the time lunch came around, I enjoyed that, and then went back to the room. And when I got back to the room, it had already been converted. This is about 2 in the afternoon, back like into a bedroom, a configuration. Lights were out, curtains pulled. She was passed out. So I just climbed back, up into the bunk and on the top level and went to sleep. And next thing you know, there's a knock at the door, and it was time to get off in Toledo to go back up on the Lake Cities to Detroit. That was now over 30 years ago, and I think I've spoken to her twice. Darndest thing, because this was the woman who, when I was 5, she was 24. And she took me to Taco Bell as a 5-year-old. And she actually taught me how to belch, if you can imagine that. Just being silly at the table with a 24-year-old girl with a 5-year-old boy, just hanging out. And she was a cool aunt. But she actually went off to California and became a dean at UCLA, one of their, branches in psychology. She just literally turned into one of those blue-haired professors. I wish her all the best. But essentially, she, for all practical purposes, abandoned a 14-year-old boy in New York City because of a disagreement. That tracks. That tracks. And yet, here is now another Amtrak story. Right. Well, see you in the next one. Like and subscribe.